Woohoo.
Everything's working today. It's a good thing.
So far, don't jinx it, please.
Oh, sorry.
Come on. I've had one of those weeks where not every. There's people here already. That's good. Good morning, all. Welcome to the EOS Get a Grip on Your Business talk. I'm just working with my technology to make sure I can see who's in the room. There we go. Perfect. Helen and Ashlyn so far. Lovely to see you here. Now we'll just give it a couple of minutes because we know from past experience that some people take a little bit of time to join us and often have challenges with the whole Zoom link and technology. So I'll just have a quick check and make sure that nobody has.
One good thing about entrepreneurs is we are so good at following instructions.
Yes. It's really funny, isn't it?
Having just spent a week on Hamilton Island with about 130 entrepreneurs with EO,
yes,
Entrepreneurs Organisation, we're just great at following instructions.
Did they do any kind of team building stuff where you had to follow instructions?
We had a buggy rally. I'd actually never been to Hamilton Island before, and I didn't even know that golf buggies is a thing, but that's how you get around on the island. There are hundreds of these things.
Yep.
And yeah, we had to do a treasure hunt type rally. And so my team insisted on just jumping in the buggy and roaring off. We came 23rd out of 30 teams or something or other, because we literally just crisscrossed. Instead of looking at it and saying, okay, what do we actually have to do here?
Yep.
They just roared off at 100 miles an hour, well, as fast as a buggy will go, to be first to leave. And yeah, we literally crisscrossed the island, but we did have fun.
I had a similar experience when I was down with a client on their annual planning session. We did an escape room for the first time for me. They've done it before. And, you know, an escape room to my mind is quite logical. You solve one clue and then unlocks another clue and then you unlock another. No, we had 8
That's
people.
Not very entrepreneurial of you.
No, I know. So we had these 8 people madly rushing around the room, just looking at various bits and pieces and going, oh, I'll try and solve this clue. I can't make that one. Maybe it'll work over here. And they called it agile. I called it absolute chaos.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we got there. We got there 15 minutes to spare, so it was good. Okay, so I'm still waiting. I've allowed Helen and Ashlyn to talk because I don't want you to sit here just talking, seeing us, Jenny and I talking. We can talk all day. So we have got around 12 people potentially today, so I just need to make sure nobody else is going to show up before we get started, so please bear with us. Just want to check.
I know one was potentially coming in late. She had a vet coming in to see a horse this morning, so we have got this recorded, and I've said to her that if she joins late, we'll send her the recording so that she can catch up on the start, but maybe give it another minute or two, and let's get into it.
Excellent. Okay. And so just want to check the people who are here so far, because technology seems to fail me quite regularly at the moment. Did you get your workbooks? Did you get a link from Zoom with the workbook that actually comes along with this workshop? Because it's quite important to have that.
Cool.
Yes,
so we've got.
Did, thank you.
Oh, great. Thank you.
And
we've got Alice there as well. Excellent. Okay. Alice's computer went flat. I assume that means battery flat, not switched flat. Excellent. Okay. Well, morning.
Yeah, Alice there. How are you?
Good, thanks.
Yeah. So I'm getting with Ashlyn because as said, the computer went flat. So.
Yeah, no, fair enough. That's all good. Hey, look, what we will do is we'll get started because I know that people will come in throughout the session. I'm going to put you back on mute if you don't mind, but please feel free throughout the session to raise your hand, chat in the chat thing. We will definitely have time for questions and answers at the end, but if you've got a question that you have come up as we're talking, then please pop it in that chat, and that way we can make sure that we deal with it. So good morning, welcome to the Get a Grip on Your Business webinar. My name is Debra Chantry-Taylor and I'm joined by Jeni Clift. Morning, Jenny. So we are going to be talking today, just make sure you're in the right room, we're going to be talking about how you can use EOS, which is the Entrepreneurial Operating System, to actually get what you want from your entrepreneurial company. And so EOS is a system that is, I liken it to your operating system on your phone. So it is the baseline that you implement in your business, supplemented by other things that you do that will ensure that you get the best possible results. So a little bit before we get started, just about who you've got with us. So as I said, my name is Debra Chantry-Taylor. I am a Brit turned Aussie turned Kiwi who now calls Australia home, and I've been a professional EOS.
You call Australia home?
Oh, sorry, I don't know what I call home anymore. I call New Zealand home.
Oh, that's new. You've moved it back, or?
No, I'm coming back in August for the first time in 2 years. So I'm a little bit distracted. I call New Zealand my home, and I live here in Auckland, and I love it. But I do still have family back in Australia, so I do go back there regularly. I've been a professional EOS implementer for 2 and a bit years. Before that, I have run businesses both for myself and for other people, managing up to about 220 staff, very much privately owned family businesses, and that is my absolute passion, is helping those types of businesses. I came across EOS because they actually launched into my event center that I ran in Auckland, and I saw this EOS and thought, what is this? Had a quick look at it and thought, this is fantastic. It brought together everything I had learned from running businesses since I was 13 years old to doing my MBA, to actually coaching through the Ice House, and it just brought it all nicely together into a really simplistic, pragmatic, practical set of tools. So I fell in love, and I'm here. And then I was very fortunate to meet Jeni, who now joins me on all of our webinars. So Jeni, please introduce yourself.
Sure. So I actually call Australia home.
Yes.
Have lived here all of my life. So I am, I've been in the entrepreneurial space for 25 years, I guess now. Background in admin and HR and graduate recruiting. And my husband and I started our business together in 1996 as a IT services or managed service provider. And for a long time, we were looking for, I guess, a way out. We'd found ourselves just trapped in this business where we were needed day in, day out, and we couldn't take more than a week off. And even then it was Wednesday to Wednesday. So we had Monday, Tuesday to kind of put everything in place so that we were back the following week, Thursday, Friday, to fix all the chaos. But the problem, we just needed to get out of the way of our employees. So we came across EOS in probably 2015, 2016, and it just kept popping up. And finally, we decided to implement it after seeing it at a conference in the US in 2018. I then trained, we implemented that business. I got out of my role as general manager, handed that on to one of my team, and trained as an EOS implementer just 3 years ago now. And now working with, I guess my space is sort of around that multi-generational family business, husbands and wives working together, because it's what Nick and I have done for 25 years, and nobody would employ me for my IT skills. After working in that space for 25 years, I have zero interest in fixing people's computers. Based in Torquay, just out of Melbourne, and my clients are pretty much sort of in Australia, although I'd love one elsewhere now that we can actually travel again.
Yes, it is fantastic to be able to travel again. So I'm coming to Australia, hopefully in June actually, but again in August for a big get together. So that's pretty cool. Thanks, Jeni.
And I'm going to Paris for Easter, so have to find my passport. Very excited to go and see my son.
Yeah, that's going to be super exciting. So we're here today, I say, to share with you everything that we know about EOS as much as we can within 90 minutes. The idea of this is an absolutely no sales environment. So we're going to share with you these tools. We're going to show you how you use them. If you are interested in finding out more, then you need to contact us afterwards. We're not going to be doing any kind of selling in here. It's just about helping you. So we have provided you with a workbook that goes along with this. And I'm just going to, the 3 things that we're going to do. We promise we're going to show you a simple tool and some really lovely concepts that you can use in your business. We're going to get real about the business and yourself. We really want to make sure that you are being real about both what goes on in the business, but also, as Jeni said, as an owner, are we actually allowing our business to get on without us? We're going to keep things really, really simple. It's one of the lovely things that I fell in love with about EOS. It is so simple and yet so effective. I've worked through with about 18 clients with EOS so far, and they all just go, is it really this simple? It's like, yes, it is, but it gets the results. And then we're going to focus on the stuff that will actually help you to get the results. So before we get started, I just want to do a quick poll just to see a little bit about who we've got on the call here today. 3 quick questions for you. So sort of first of all, how many of you are a business owner or a leader or a manager? And then what size is your business? And then the second poll is just going to be around how much you actually know about EOS. So I'm not going to share these, just want to get a sense of who we've got in the room. We want to make this as practical and as pragmatic as possible. And so just having a sense of who we're talking to will be able to mean we can tailor our examples and our experience shares with you. So please go ahead and answer those poll questions if you can. I see Jeni has shared the workbook again, which is great. Lovely. Okay. The next question is just around how much you know about EOS. And so if I can just share that with you and go ahead and answer that, that would be fantastic. I'll leave that up there for a moment. Okay, great. So let's get real. I'm going to talk very much about concepts that will help you to simplify and strengthen your business. So we're going to talk about it, but I need to just have you think about this for a moment. So Kurt Gödel, who was one of Einstein's contemporaries, he said that you cannot, he said, actually proved scientifically that you cannot be part of a system and at the same time understand the system. So what I need you to do for this particular session is kind of close your eyes, lift yourself up out of the weeds, if you like, and take a very holistic view of the business and be really, really honest about the answers that you're going to put in your workbook, because this is the way you'll actually get the results. So while we're just waiting for that poll to finish and while we should make sure you've all got your workbooks, I just want to give you a brief history of EOS and its stats, just so you can see that we're not practicing on you. So we're going to talk about getting real, keep it simple, get results. I always forget we have slides that actually do that. So who we've shared with us, who Jeni and myself are. What I want to now share with you is more about EOS. So EOS is a complete system of timeless concepts, practical tools. It's been around for well over 20 years, and it's used by about 130,000 businesses around the globe. So there are about 470 versions of Jeni and I. They have some very specific criteria about who can and can't join the community. So we're all actually business owners. We've all been there, done that, and we have embraced the EOS system in our own businesses, and now we're sharing it with the world. And so it is a complete system. It is a very simple and pragmatic system. But the thing is, it's not a magic silver bullet. So the reality is that it's like there's nothing in here that you'll suddenly go, great, that's going to solve my problems overnight. It's about adopting a system and bringing it into your business on a regular basis to make sure you're strengthening these 6 key components we're going to talk about. It's also absolutely nothing new. And this is probably what I loved about it, was that it actually draws on all of the knowledge of some of the most amazing people. So my bookshelf behind me, apart from all the EOS books, there's some amazing authors up there. You've got the Jim Collins of the world, the Vern Harnishes of the world, the Patrick Lencioni, and they all worked on various parts, like how you get your vision, how you get your sweet spot. Patrick Lencioni was very much about the health of the team, and Vern Harnish was about building a system. And what Gino did was he brought all of these really amazing sort of minds together and created a system that is really simple to use with the entrepreneur in mind. And that is because, as we well know as entrepreneurs, we can get very easily distracted. So if we can bring this down into a much simpler kind of way of implementing it, we know we'll have better results. And what Gino actually discovered was that no matter what business you were in, and no matter what size you were, at somewhere on your journey, you're going to experience around about 136 issues that every single business experiences as they grow. And what he worked out was that by strengthening these 6 key components that we're going to talk about, you can actually take any business and break through hitting the ceiling. And so we talk a lot about hitting the ceiling and what that means. And he did this originally in his father's business. So he got brought into his father's business at the age of 22, I think it was. The business was flatlining, it wasn't going anywhere, and he sort of developed this system to actually bring the business back to growth again. And then he shared it with other entrepreneurs in EO and worked out there was a really good system that worked for most businesses. So that's kind of the history of it. I think the numbers on my sheet are a bit out of date, but it was 20 years ago. They've done around about 100,000 sessions. There's 131,000 businesses using it, and there's around about 12,000 businesses using an implementer. The rest are self-implementing. So the key thing is that he recognized the same frustrations existed across all of these businesses, these 136 issues. It was around control, that lack of control or not being able to let go. It was around profit, not having enough of it. It was around people. We love people. People are the most important thing in the business, but if you don't get the right people, we know how frustrating that can be. Hitting the ceiling, you can see behind me on the wall, there is a poster there talking about hitting the ceiling. And the reality is that hitting the ceiling is inevitable. It happens to every single business at various stages in their growth cycle. I always laughed when we were at uni and they taught us about that classic kind of S-curve, because I have never worked in a business or with a business where we didn't have a whole lot of bumps along the way. And that's what I mean by hitting the ceiling, is you kind of bounce around for a while and you're not able to break through. And the final thing is like nothing's working. So, you kind of feel like you've tried everything, but really nothing seems to be working for you. So EOS is designed to actually help you work on those things and strengthen the key areas. I want you, before we get started, I think it's on page 2 and 3 in the workbook, we've got this organizational checkup. And I'd love for you to take a few moments to answer really honestly these 20 questions. And just using a scale of 1 to 5, where 1 is pretty weak and 5 is strong, just take a look at each of these questions and have a think about not only where you think you are, but if you were to actually ask your employees, where would they say that you are as well? Because the first question, as an example, we have a clear vision in writing that has been properly communicated and is shared by everyone. I was just reading an HBR, Harvard Business Review article yesterday that said something like 90% of people who thought they had shared their vision and their plan, the employees still didn't know what they were doing. So just be honest about what you think it is. Take a moment to answer those 20 questions, and then we will get into the model.
I've also put a link. There's an online version, exactly the same thing, but an online version, and you just go through, answer those questions, and it sends you through like a report of your answers, but it kind of categorizes them into the 6 components of EOS, so that you can have a look at that and say, my where I can have the biggest impact right now is in the people or the issues or whatever it may be.
Yeah, and it provides some amazing resources as well. So even if you do this one on the paper, I'd still recommend doing that online one, because it does give you lots of links to things that are really helpful.
And so, going on what you said, Deborah, there, I had a conversation just recently with some business owners, and the owner of the business, husband and wife owned business, worked together, or 30 something years old. And the owner, Brett, said, 5, I've got a very clear vision. I know exactly what it is. And he had 2 new people that had been in the business 3 and 4 months. And they put it as a 1 because they said, we didn't know there was one. So really easy fix. He said, we got off our call and he said, I'm going to go and have a chat to these 2 about my vision, because clearly we've missed that bit in our induction process. But yeah, it's very common that, that vision is really clear in the owner's head, but they're unable or just completely missed the point that they need to articulate that.
Yeah. Okay, hopefully you've had a chance to have a look at those and actually answer them. There is a little bit of a score sheet at the end, which you can then take, and it gives you a little bit of a few tips about what you can actually do around it. Okay, so there is method in our madness. The reason we actually do that up front is to get you thinking about where there might be some weaknesses in your business, because as we work through the tools and the model, you'll see which ones, as Jeni said, will give you the quick wins in the business. So let's take a quick look. Let's keep it very simple. Let's take a quick look at the EOS model. I'm going to take you once around just to introduce the concept of it, and then Jeni and I are going to take it in turns to share with you the individual components, but more importantly, the tools that you actually use to help get the strength in this business. So the EOS model is based around your business. Put your business name in there, and it has these 6 key components. The first one being vision. And this is really around making sure that, as we just said, the vision that you have in your head is actually taken out of your head. It's put down, it's clearly articulated, and everybody not only knows what it is, but they actually know how they fit in with it as well. So we talk about, this 100% on the same page in terms of knowing where we're headed, why we're headed, who we service, those kind of things. The second component is very much around people. And like I said in the beginning, people, we love people, but we know that the wrong people in the organization can make or break it. So in EOS, we talk very much about making sure we have got the right people doing the right things in the business. And we'll come back to how we make sure we do that. The third component is around data, and I have been very fortunate to both run my own businesses, work in other businesses, and work in a couple of corporates for my sins, and even a stint of 18 months in council. So I've seen every type of business there is out there. And what I find with data is that often we either measure things that are just easy to measure because it's easy to do it. We measure things because we've always measured them, or we measure things that make us feel good. And in EOS, what we say is that data is truly important, but it should be data that actually helps you to make decisions in the business. So measure the things that are important. The next one is around issues. And this is, as I said, everybody's got issues without a doubt, both personally and professionally. But I'm talking about business issues right here, right now. And so the key thing about the EOS model is about taking these issues, actually getting them out there, listing them, identifying them, and then working to solve them at the root cause. And if you can do that, then you are actually solving issues as they arise. And if you're solving issues at their root cause, they never come back again. Fifth component is around process, and this comes from, again, one of Gino's contemporaries was Michael Gerber, who wrote the E-Myth and the E-Myth Revisited. He talked about the fact that even if you don't want to franchise your business, in order to make it sustainable, in order for it to operate without you, you need to make sure that all of your core processes are documented and that everybody is following them. And then finally, we have traction. And this is obviously the book that Gino wrote, but it's around, he always says that, vision without traction is hallucination. And what we mean by traction is making sure that not only do we have an idea of what all these things mean, but we actually have accountability, we have discipline, people know what they're meant to be doing, and we have a rhythm to keep things moving. So as I said, vision without traction is hallucination. And that was one of the key things that attracted me to the EOS model, is that it's not just about having this wonderful session where you leave the room going, yay, we've got this great idea of what our vision is. Oh no, I'm back to the business, day-to-day business, fighting fires day in, day out. So that is the EOS model in whole. What I'd like to do now is I'd like to take you through the individual components. And we're going to start with working on the vision, which I'm going to cover. Then I'm going to hand over to Jeni after that. So let's take a look at vision. So in this model, for every part of this, we have two key tools that we use to actually help us in order to strengthen these components. We are aiming to get 100% strong around all 6 of these components. The goal is really, well, we're aiming high. You never get to 100%. 100% is nirvana. And what happens is just when you feel like you're getting there, something will change, something will happen, and you're back to square one again. So we're aiming to get 80% strong across the board. And in general, most businesses, they say, according to the US, sit around about the 20% mark. Jeni and I think it's more around 30 to 40 in Australia and New Zealand, because we're obviously superior in these two countries. Yeah. But that's based on our experience of actually seeing, several hundred people complete surveys and things. We know it's definitely a little bit higher over here. So have a look and let's see what it means for you. So if we take the vision component, we have 2 tools. The first is 8 questions. And we use this thing called the Vision Traction Organizer. And this is really a tool that will give you a 2-page plan that you can share with every organization about who we are, why we exist, where we're headed, what we look like. The first part is very much around the vision. I'm going to go into each of these individual areas in a moment. But the first part is the vision page. The second part is the traction page. So the vision sort of says where we're headed long term. The traction brings it down to the ground and gives you actual things you can measure on a more sort of short-term basis. So let's have a look at the individual components. The first thing is core values. And I don't know about any of you, but having worked in corporate and in government, there was a tendency for these to be a bit of a tick box. Yay, we've got some core values, stick them on a wall, put them on a screensaver, and suddenly we're done. And often they would be aspirational things, or worse, they would be a set of values that we took our company name and we shoved some values into it. So we've got the word tower was my favorite, tower insurance. We got the word tower. Let's make some core values from that acronym. And so we ended up with some ridiculous core values that really didn't actually represent who we were. So at EOS, we have a slightly different approach to it. We believe they're actually discovered. We don't believe you make them up. It's not aspirational. They're not permission to play kind of cookie cutter kind of values either. They're discovered by actually looking at your top people. And so what we say is, look at your top people in your organization and imagine and these are people you actually want to clone. You'd like to have 100 of these people in your business. And you look and you say, what are the core values that they exhibit? Then you define what those really mean. So you might, we recommend 3 to 5. The reason that we say that, just like Jeni, I had a client I was working with a couple of years ago, and they said, oh yeah, no, we've got our core values defined. Fantastic. How many are there? There's 9. Great. So we've got 11 people who are all shareholders in this business. Can somebody please tell me what those 9 values are? And we actually got as far as 2. So we got 2 out of 9. So we know that less is more. So 3 to 5, discover them by looking at the people you'd love to clone, and then define them really strongly. So we have one of help first at EOS, and we say it's help first is the actual value. And the way that we define that is we do things with the intention of helping without expecting anything in return. We've got another 4 values as well. I won't go into each of them, but that's how we do it. And then it's important that we actually live and breathe them. So again, it's all very well having on a beautiful poster on the wall. I'm not against posters on walls, by the way, nor am I against screensavers. In fact, I have mine on my phone, so I'm not saying you shouldn't do, but it has to actually be meaningful. And so living and breathing means that when you're in a meeting with someone, you can call them out if they're not following the core values. When you're hiring people, you can say, hey, look, we're looking for people who share these core values, and you test them with people. When you've got people in the organization who aren't following those core values, what do you do about it? So that's the core values. And in your booklet, you'll see we've got the VTO in there. So we work through working what these are, and then we get them written down, first of all, in that VTO. The second thing is the core focus. This is a kind of a unique term to EOS, but it's made up of 2 parts, which you'll have heard of and know about. So the first one is the purpose, the cause, or the passion. And this is the Simon Sinek video. This is the golden circle, the why do you exist? Why do you get out of bed in the morning? And it's usually pretty broad. So I've got a company that actually imports parts to make trailers. I'm really not quite sure exactly what they, but I know that's roughly what they do. And so interesting that their purpose, their core purpose, they call it, is actually to build stronger communities. And you go, well, that's got nothing to do with trailer parts. And it's absolutely not, but that is why they exist. They actually exist as a family company to help build stronger communities. And then the second part is the niche, which is what you can be the best in the world at or better than anybody else at. And so within their niche, they talk about working in partnerships with trailer manufacturers to build better businesses. And then that leads to their why, which is building better communities. So there's 2 parts. The first part is the why, the second part is the what. So what can you be the best in the world at? 10-year target. This is again an EOS term. It comes from Jim Collins. It comes from that big, hairy, audacious goal. The idea being, I think Gino says that we always achieve a whole lot more in 10 years than we expect to, and a whole lot less in 1 year. And so this 10-year target is the guiding light. It's the Northern Star. It's that compass. This is where we are headed and what our ultimate goal in the business is in 10 years' time. Now, it can vary. It can be 3, 5, 10 years, depending on how fast the business is growing. But the idea is this is actually the compass that guides the entire organization, keeps everybody rowing in the same direction. I think Volvo had a fantastic one. They talked about the fact that it was written in the year 2010, and they said by 2020 no one would be seriously harmed or killed by a Volvo. And what that meant is that they had to look at building a car that not only looked after the passenger but also was looking out for the kid that might come across on their bicycle in front, or the young toddler who's in behind as you're reversing. And so that was their one definitive goal by 2020, and everything then was laser sharp focused on achieving that. So what do you want from your business 5 to 30 years out? What's the number one goal that you really want to achieve? The one thing I will say, it can't be financial. Apart from the shareholders, nobody else in the company really gets turned on by finances. So it needs to be something bigger than that. It needs to be something that's actually really meaningful. The next thing is the marketing strategy. And for somebody who is a qualified marketer and spent many years working in sales and marketing, this is not your traditional marketing strategy at all. So the idea behind this is about making sure we're keeping our teams laser sharp focused on who it is that we're going after. So we often have a tendency to want to be everything to everybody, right? Because it's like, oh, but we can do that, and we can do that, and we can do that. But what Jim Collins has shown is that nobody dies of starvation. And in fact, the clearer that you, because of lack of opportunities, the clearer you get about who you're actually targeting, the better it is. Now, this doesn't mean that somebody might come to you, may not exactly fit within those parameters, but it means that the people you are going after and talking to are those. So in EOS, we talk about things like we work with privately owned businesses. You know, we need to work with privately owned business. We need to have people who are decision makers. We work with businesses that are generally 10 to 250 staff because they have a leadership team. They have to be open and honest and willing to be vulnerable. They've got to want to grow, and they've got to know that they need some help as well. And there's a couple of other things, but basically we describe what that list is. Now, the other day, I actually had a public listed company come to me. I had a look at their other values that they held, and they were very much entrepreneurial. And so I started working with them. But see, it's not excluding anybody, but it means I'm not going out there going, I can help everybody. I know. And in fact, I'm even more specific, like Jeni is too. I actually say I want to work with kind of family-owned businesses or professional services. And so that's my sort of two areas that I go after. That's your target market, the list. It should be absolutely crystal clear. Everybody in the organization knows exactly who we serve and who we don't. The 3 uniques is a little bit of a way of sort of expanding on the unique selling point that people talk about. I think it's really hard to get a unique selling point for any business these days, because let's face it, the world has become more complicated. We're now acting globally, we're sort of thinking globally, acting locally, working with people around the world. And so how do you actually have one thing that makes you unique? So what we say is with 3 uniques, they are 3 things that are absolutely fundamental to who you are, which on their own other competitors may share. So we talk about vision, traction, and healthy in EOS. Vision means that we help you get 100% on the same page in terms of your vision and your plan. Every business coach will tell you they can do that. Traction means that we have a proven process and a proven model to help you, an operating system, if you like, that you can put into the business, which will actually give you the traction that you require. There's a couple of other businesses that can potentially say that. I think about the scaling up, for example. And then we have healthy, which is very much about building a healthy team that's prepared to have the uncomfortable conversation, works for the greater good. And again, most leadership coaches will tell you they will do that. There is nobody who will actually do all 3 apart from the EOS team, who we work on all 3 of those components. So the idea is individually, many people might have them, but together they form this almost unbreakable bond that makes you unique. And then we have the proven process and the guarantee. And I'm not sure it's covered in these slides, but you will see the proven process in EOS. It says this: we've been doing this for 20 years. This is how we work with you as a client. This is what you should expect from it. And it just takes away any fear of wanting to work with you. I'm not quite sure what to expect. Oh, I know. Okay, that's great. And finally, there's a guarantee. And this is all, the bottom 2 are completely optional. Some companies have them, some don't. But the guarantee needs to have some teeth in it. So as EOS implementers, we actually have a worldwide guarantee that says we don't sign contracts, we don't have any agreements with you. We work with you and your leadership team day by day. And at the end of the day, if you don't see value, you don't pay for our day. So that is a guarantee that we have. And that just gives some teeth to that guarantee. Oh, there is a process. Okay, cool. Here's the EOS process. So as you can see, it's a proven process. We said, this is how we work with you. We take our clients through and say, we do 1 day, then we take 30 days. And we talk them through it, and it's visually, they can see, okay, that's what I expect from working with you. I know how much time I'm going to have to commit. I know what we're going to cover off. I know what to expect as outcomes. So that's the proven process and the guarantee. The last part of the vision is the 3-year picture. And we do start with some really cold, hard stuff. So we have a future date being 3 years. We have some revenue, some profit, and the top 2 or 3 measurables that we know are really important to us. But the thing that I love about this is that what does it look like? So in this, we actually start to describe what it looks like working in this organization in 3 years' time. So in 3 years' time, we will have beautiful offices. We were winning awards. People will want to come and work with us. We are working with really cool companies. We're doing some amazing projects. We're traveling around the world. We're going to conferences, whatever it might be, but you paint this picture. I've got an IT firm who, one of the key things for them to attract really good IT staff is to make sure that they're working on cool projects. So for them, one of their things in their 3-year picture is we're working with really cool projects that allow you to, use your unique abilities. So painting that picture is really important. And then we have to bring that down to the ground, because all that stuff is wonderful and you get very excited by it. But if you haven't actually got a way of actioning it or executing on it, it means absolutely nothing. And also the discipline and the accountability. So we have 3 sections on the traction bit. The first year is the 1-year plan. And what this talks about is, again, we have a future date, we have our revenue, our profit, our 2 or 3 measurables, and then we have 3 to 7 goals for the year. And we are really strict about this. You cannot do 12 or 14 or 16, as one of my clients wanted to do the other day. We know that what you focus on is where you'll get the results. And if everything is important, nothing is important. So I can speak now from a bucket load of experience, is that those who kind of stick to that 3 to 7 generally achieve the 3 to 7. Those that want to go further really don't do it. And honestly, to get to 7, you've actually got to be a pretty driven, high performance team to actually achieve 7 goals for the year. And they have to be smart. We need to know when we've actually achieved them. That's the most important thing. And then we break it down even further into rocks. This is our 90-day world, which means that we're looking at every 90 days, what are the 3 to 7 key things that we need to focus on that take us toward our 10-year target, our 3-year picture, and our 1-year plan. And so these rocks are like little mini chunks of eating the elephant, of the 1-year plan goals, and then moving us forward to it. And again, it's really important they're smart, but also they're actually achievable in that 90 days. There's no point in saying we've got no CRM system, we're going to move to a CRM system in 90 days. Sorry, not in my entire working history I've ever seen that happen. But what you could look at is scoping, briefing, choosing, getting it ready to go. Probably not going to have it installed within 90 days. So make sure that they're really measurable and smart about what you can do. And then finally, the issues list. And this is kind of what we call the long-term issues list, which is what are the things that are either holding us back or have the opportunity to propel us even further forward. So they can be issues, challenges, problems, or opportunities. And it's things that in the bigger picture are actually issues for us that maybe we can't solve on a weekly basis, but we can solve at our quarterly sessions as a leadership team and work through them. So that is the Vision Traction Organizer. It's a pretty simple document, but I've left mine over there in my workshop, but I actually have a copy of this printed out every quarter. It's laminated. We use it in our level 10 meetings every week. We're looking at it all the time and saying, hey, are we on track? And that's part of the second part of Vision, which is shared by all. So it's really important. Again, you might have it written down, but unless you're actually talking about it actively, having State of the Nation updates, talking about level 10 meetings, bringing it to life, holding people accountable, then it means nothing. So the second part of the vision is shared by all. So if you can answer those 8 questions in a way that everybody understands it, knows how they fit into it, and everybody has the has an understanding of what role they play in achieving that plan, then you have 100% strong in vision. And with that, I'm going to stop talking now, and I'm going to hand over to Jeni, who's going to take us to the next part. So I will stop sharing.
Stop sharing so I can share my screen. And oh, where's screen 2 gone? This one here. Okay, so my favourite of the 6 is, I know what other people find the biggest nightmare to deal with is my favourite thing. So people, and let me find. Don't you love technology when it's not working for you? Never mind. Okay, that's all right. So people is all about having 2 things. First is having the right people. And what we mean by that is the people that fit your culture. They fit like a glove. You love having them around. As Debra said earlier, if you could clone them, you'd have 100 of them, and your business would just absolutely, take on the world. And there's a couple of tools that we use to, I guess, to help us get to this point. So the first one is the People Analyzer. And it's a way of looking at those values that you've come up with by doing that VTO document. So these are the values of Debra and I as EOS Implementers. We put those across the top. And then we look at our people. And so today we're looking at Maria, Jalen, and Amina. And we're going to rate them on a, I guess, fairly subjective model of a plus. So Maria is humbly confident. She is confident in what she's doing, but there's that sense of humility around her. She's not arrogant or over the top. Jalen, unfortunately, is a minus. So he or she, I'm sure if it's a boy or a girl, Jalen, but just does not display that value at all. And Amina is a plus minus. So some of the time, Amina is displaying that value. And then we go through and do exactly the same thing for the rest. Now, the way that I use this tool in our IT business is if we've got perhaps a new hire, we will use it. And those who've interviewed or met the potential new hire will go through and from what we've seen of this potential hire, rate them against that. The other end of the spectrum is if we've got a problem with an employee, we'll use this again and say, where's the issue? Is it a values match? What's actually going on here? What this does from this first perspective, though, is it gives us the bar. So in our business, we need to have each person with a minimum of 4 pluses and a plus minus. We're not saying that we're looking for utopia. It's just never going to happen. There will be somebody who, on any day is, struggling in one of these places, but it gives us that bar. What's the minimum acceptable level? You don't want anybody in the business who just is a negative. They just do not display that value at all. So that's about getting the right people. The next part is the right seat. So from an EOS terminology, seat is they're in the right job. They're doing something that they love. They've got the passion for, they have the skills, the experience, and they bounce out of bed every day saying, this is my calling. It's what I was born to do. So when we get the match of those two, it's, it's really nice going to work. You can go on holidays. You can take a month off. Once we started to put this in place, we went from not able to having more than a week to Nick and I went away for 5 weeks, and we had 2 phone calls. One of them was his father. They were just able to do their job. So from an EOS perspective, what we do is we look at structure first, people second. So how we do this is the accountability chart. Now, this is not an organizational chart where we look at the people and then we build the business around the people and their abilities. We say, what does the business need in order to be successful? So this is a very, very basic accountability chart, and I'll start under that dotted line with the integrator. So the integrator is the fat controller. They're the one who keeps the trains running on time, and the conductor of the orchestra. They're the one who's keeping everybody in harmony and making sure that anybody who's out of tune, they're whacking them back into shape. And then we have every business has a marketing and a sales operation. So generating leads by marketing, and then the sales team are closing those into deals. Operations, doing what it is that you do. And then finance, making sure that you're getting bills out, you're chasing outstanding money, all of your compliance is taken care of, HR, IT, internal system, that sort of thing. So very, very basic. And what we do is we build this out to suit your business, depending on your industry, your size, that sort of thing. So sometimes operations will split into 1, 2, 3 pillars, if you like, because of the way that your business operates, the size that you are. The visionary above that dotted line, I think EOS numbers, they say around 50% of businesses. I actually think it's probably a little bit higher than that. But the visionary is the person who has the vision. They're the one who can see 10 years ahead and say, this is where the business is going. This is what we're going to look like. They sit at they don't do detail, so they're at 30,000 feet looking down saying, follow me, this is the way that we're going. Where the integrator is much more detail and now and managing the day-to-day stuff. So once we've got that overall structure, we look at the functions and then say, what are the key roles within each of those functions? And again, around the 5, less is more. And we do that. Once we've done that, we've said, the integrator, what's the role of the integrator? They're to, deliver on the profit and loss and the business plan, special project. So Debra said about implementing a CRM. They're the one who goes takes the team through making the decision on what that will be, and then seeing it through to implementation, training, that sort of thing. But what are those key roles of each of those functions? And then the last thing that we do once we've got all of that set is we start to put names into boxes. So we go through each of those. So LMA is another EOS term: lead, manage, and hold people accountable. They're responsible for marketing, hitting sales numbers, selling, which is always a good thing, and account management. So that's the overall role of the marketing and sales, or head of marketing and sales. We do the same thing. So for all of those, so we go through that process. And then the next part of this is another tool that we call GWC. So EOS, Entrepreneurial Operating System, is the master of 3-letter acronyms. So once we've got these, the function, we've got the roles determined, we say, so a leadership team here in the room, our composer, our conductor or integrator, the role is to hold the orchestra together, keep everybody in time. They have full control over the performance, they have full creative control, and they deal with any orchestra issues. So then we go around the room and say, okay, Debra, do you get what this role is? Do you understand what that is? Yes or no? Want it? Debra, do you actually want this role? And no. Whoop, she's a no, she doesn't get it. So she gets it, she understands what the role is, but she doesn't actually want to do it. And then the last one is capacity. And this is time, kind of plays a little bit into it, but it's really more, I look at it, get it, is you were born with a passion and the understanding to do it. Capacity is all of the things that you've done since then. So it's the experience that you've had, it's the qualifications, but time, little factor, but it's not, oh, you know, if that was the only thing I could do, then I would have the capacity. That's not what capacity means. So coming back to our people analyzer, we then add GWC to this picture as well. So we go through and say Maria, Jalen, and Amina again. Maria, the role of conductor, gets it, wants it, capacity. Jalen, yes, she gets it. I'll presume it's a she today. Wants it, yes. Capacity, no. I don't think I have the skills and the experience to do that job. And Amina, she doesn't get it. She doesn't understand there. She wants it, and she has the capacity. So we actually did this some years ago in our business, and one of the people in our sales team said, and there was a head of sales role, and he said, yes, he gets it. Yes, he wanted it, but he didn't have the capacity. So we actually put a 12-month plan in place, and a year later, that person was in that role. Had we not asked the question, we wouldn't have even known that he was interested in the role. So there's real value in asking these questions and using these tools just to find out who has that desire to step into different roles or to climb the ladder, so to speak. And the bar, of course, somebody in the role, any of these roles has to be 3 yeses. Particularly, I find wanted. If somebody's in a role they don't want it, then you need to make a plan to get them out of that role. So we have the right seats right through the business. We know what that is. And then we'll end up with something that looks like this. So as implementers, we work with the leadership team and we get it down to the head of departments and build those roles out. But then we'll leave it to the leadership team to go back into the business and build out the rest of the accountability chart. But you really want to have it looking like this. We also use this for growth. So there are functions in our business that there is nobody in them, but we know that that's our next hire. So it's kind of building out the start of that position description and starting to build out the growth.
I just have to share too, I've got one client actually in Melbourne who's classic. He's actually gone and looked at the business 5 years out and built the entire accountability chart for the 5 years out. And then he has people wearing multiple hats. But what it means is that he can very, very quickly identify when somebody is overwhelmed and can't cope, they can then go, right, the next hire should be this. So a little bit on the sort of the scale of what he's doing everything, but nevertheless quite helpful.
OCD? Is that the term?
I'm not sure if it's OCD or autism. We're all on a scale of some description, aren't we?
Cool. Okay. What we see is often 2 kinds of people issues. The first one is we've got the right person. They fit the culture. We love them. They do a great job. They love the business, but they're in the wrong seat. So is the business big enough that you can move them into a different seat that fits their skills better? The really dangerous one is this one. It's the wrong person in the right seat. It's the person that they're toxic, could be lazy, could be, a salesperson is the most common one I see here. they are bringing in the dollars. They are selling, but they're selling things that you can't deliver, or so they're burning out the rest of the organisation by hitting those sales targets. And as a business owner, it's really hard to get rid of those people because they're bringing in the dollars, and you think, oh, if they go, how are we going to cope? But what I've seen happen is the culture, like the damage they do to your culture and to your business and the reputation, beg, plead with business owners, get rid of them, move them on. They're the most dangerous one. But I've been in a situation where we had the right person and we moved her around to various seats, and eventually it became clear that she'd been with us 7 years from when we were really small. We had outgrown, or the business had outgrown her skills, and we had to make the really difficult decision, and we managed her out of the business. One of the hardest things I've ever done. She was the right person. She fit the culture. Her skills had just, the business needs had outgrown her level of skill. So people is about getting the right people in the right seats, and Utopia is getting 100% strong. You're never going to get there. Our aim is to get that to 80%. So let's jump into data. And Deborah, that's back to you. Let me unshare.
Perfect, thank you. So data is an interesting one. As I alluded to in the beginning, we often measure things because we always have, or because it's easy to, or because it makes us feel good. But what we want to do is measure data that we can actually make decisions on. And so there was a classic kind of quote from Jim Barks, who was a former Netscape CEO. He says, if we've got data, let's look at the data. If all we have are opinions, let's go with mine. And I have to say, occasionally I might have had the same kind of attitude towards my business as well. So really important that we actually have some data to look at. So there's two components to data in EOS. The first one that we actually use is a thing called a scorecard. And again, different terminology, it can be called a dashboard, but there's a little bit of a uniqueness in the EOS scorecard in terms of it is actually a scorecard that looks at a total of 13 weeks, which is your 90 days, and it looks at the most important kind of things for each of the key functions of the business. So for your sales and marketing, for your operations, for your finance, for your people, you'll have these measurables. And so again, you think about somewhere between 5 and 15 measurables as a leadership team, you're going to look at every single week, and you're going to use them to actually make decisions about the business. So they have to be a mixture of leading and lagging indicators. So you can have something like weekly revenue, really important. We want to know what we've done, but it's already too late. That's already gone. So what are your leading indicators that actually help you to understand, will we get the revenue next week? So things like sales calls, sales meetings, proposals, closed business, that gives us an indicator of what is actually coming up in the pipeline and where we're going. Customer satisfaction, if we're thinking about clients, obviously if we start to see a drop in that customer satisfaction, we know we're going to potentially have an issue going later on. Accounts payable, if we've got money not coming in, that's a real challenge. And then errors in utilization. So we come up with a 5 to 15. I liken it to, and I'm going to be there, so imagine you're away on an island like Fiji or Hamilton, like Jeni just got back from, and you're sitting there on the beach, and you've got the cabana boy or girl comes across and goes, here you go, Mrs. Chantry-Taylor, I brought you your margarita. You go, fantastic. And they go, I've also brought you your 13-week scorecard. You should be able to look at that scorecard, and you should either be able to say, wow, we're doing really well, get me another margarita, I'm staying for another couple of weeks, or look at it and go, oh my goodness, there's something majorly wrong here, what can we do to resolve it? And I talk about this from a level of experience in terms of when we went through the lockdown, it was really tough looking at your scorecard measurables every single week, because we were in serious lockdown, our event space wasn't able to be rented out, all kinds of things were going on beyond our control. So part of me wanted to say, I don't want to look at the weekly revenue, I don't want to look at the number of bookings we've got, I don't want to look at the number of inquiries. But actually, after a number of weeks of looking at the red figures, it actually made you go, we cannot continue like this. So what do we need to do to actually change the way that we do things? So once you've got your measurables, you set a goal for them, obviously, and you will have somebody who is accountable for them based on the accountability chart that Jeni just shared with you. So you put that measurable, you put the goal, you put the person, and then you literally start to measure every single week. And what we're looking for here is not absolutes, because at the end of the day, if you don't make weekly revenue one day or 1 week, that's probably okay. But if it's a regular repeating occurrence, you know you've got an issue. if you are not making, for example, your sales meetings, you can pretty much know that if you're not making the sales meetings, that eventually it's going to show through on your results a couple of weeks down the track. Sales calls, same sort of thing. So we're looking for trends. We use some software for this, but even just using a simple spreadsheet is really, really important. I've got one client who literally prints it out, writes the numbers in and highlights it with a green or a pink pen and shares it in the leadership team meeting because they found it was quicker and easier than using software. So that was their choice. But the reality is we want to be looking at it every single week and then going, right, is there an issue within here? Do we need to deal with it? And that's the scorecard. So really, really simple. Then once you've got that, that is the leadership team level, right? That's your 5 to 15 numbers that we as leaders look at across the business. But then we have them for the individual areas as well. So we'll have a scorecard for marketing, and that will delve more deeply into the measurables that marketing wants to know. We'll have one for sales, we'll have one for operations, we'll have one for finance. And so at the leadership team level, if we look at the high level number and go, we've got a bit of an issue here, we can ask the marketing lead to go give us more detail on that, and they can bring up their own scorecard and say, well, actually, here's the challenge that we're actually facing. And then beyond that, we've also got functions will have their own scorecards as well, which then feed up into those bigger departments, which then feed up the leadership team. So the idea is that eventually every single person in the organization knows what their measurable is, knows what they have to achieve, and can be held accountable for it. So pretty simple, but really, really effective. I had one company who was way behind in terms of where they wanted to be sales. They weren't looking at their scorecard, or they didn't have a scorecard. We developed the scorecard for them. They were looking at every single week. It felt almost impossible, the number they had chosen, but in less than 3 months, they were actually hitting it because it's that focus of this is what we need to do. How do we make it happen? So those measurable,
Deborah, just jump in there for a sec. When we implemented EOS and took it down into the team and that scorecard, 2 of our most senior techs came to me and said, we just needed to talk to you about this EOS thing because we don't like it.
Yep.
So can we not do it? And I said, tempting, but no, we're going to do it. And they said, how long will we do it for? I always say it's like getting a big spotlight and shining into every corner of the business. There's nowhere to hide. So one of them quit, and the other one, as we like to say, we set him free to find an alternative path to success because they were not performing and they'd been able to hide. But with EOS, there was just nowhere to hide.
Yeah, I completely agree. And it's interesting because actually most people do like to be held accountable. When I've implemented this across, different size businesses, anything from sort of 10 people up to, I think my largest client's about 140 at the moment. They've brought it down into all the different levels over time. And most people relish it. It's like, yay, we finally know what it is we're going to be held accountable for. And it means you can give them freedom to do it in whichever way they want to, because you know what the outcome is that you require. So provide they're living by the values, provide they know what they're responsible for, how they do it, we don't really mind so much as long as it fits those 2 things. So yeah, it can just change the way a business is done.
That one went to a bank and the other one went to a government department. So there's probably plenty of places to hide there.
Yeah, definitely. So that starter, it's not rocket science, it really isn't, but it is amazing. And I have teams, they say it takes 3 months to find a really good scorecard, and it's true. We have this whole, I always say, suck it and see. I say to the team, go away, give it a try. You might come back in the next call or next 30 days and go, actually, you know what, there's no point in measuring this, we're not doing anything with it. Great, let's stop doing it. Let's not measure things we can't actually use to make a difference, but you'll find out eventually what you actually do need to measure. And I've had companies that started with, we say 5 to 15, I've got ones that want 22. It's like, okay, go ahead, do 22. I had one company who literally had 22 measurables. They are now down to 5 at that leadership team level. And that's fantastic because it means that there are 5 key things they should be measuring. And then if they're not hitting it, they can go, right, what else do we need to look at in more detail? So I think it's a game changer. This in the level 10 meetings is just changes the way everything is done. And like you said, there's nowhere to hide. So that's what 100% strong looks like. You've got a scorecard for the leadership team, for the departments, for the individual kind of sub-departments, and every single person has got one measurable they're responsible for. And you might say, well, how do you do that with a receptionist? It could be answering a phone in a certain number of rings or responding to a customer email in a certain amount of time. There is infinite number of measurables you can use that will help you decide whether or not you're living up to what you promised your customer. Right, I think it's back to you again, Jen.
Okay.
On to issues.
To me for issues.
Mm.
And let me jump into that one. Make sure I hit that last button, share. Always forget that bit.
And just
Okay.
a reminder, all of this is in your workbook too, and some examples. So do have a look at those examples to help you with putting it together.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay, so issues. So what happens when you start to look at those first three components is issues start to pop, sort of bubble up to the surface, if you like. And issues can be positive as well as negative. So it could be opportunities. Nick and I, my husband and I, have worked together for 25 years. We always say there's so much opportunity to improve here. So issues can be opportunities. It can be issues that need to be solved around people or around production, sales, whatever it is. But we just bundle it all together under the term issues. So you're not moving for me. Here we go. So the first tool that we use is the issues list. Very simple concept of just getting all of that stuff out of your head and onto a list, the stuff that wakes you up at 2 a.m. or, but all of those things, get them out of your head onto a list so that you can figure out what are the most important, and let's go through and start solving some of these issues. And the second one, another 3-letter acronym, IDS, identify, discuss, solve. So making sure that you're not doing what many businesses have done, and we were experts of this, of talking, and walking out of a meeting going, great meeting, great discussion. Somebody is going to do something about that thing sometime, and of course nothing happened. A week or a month or a quarter later, you're having the same fucking discussion again. Did I mention that we swear a lot? So I think that was the first one. We've done very well today. So let's look at our issues list. So we have 7 here, and what we do is we look at those 7 and say, what are the top 3 that we're going to tackle in our meeting today first? So what we're going to do with those is we are going to pick our first 3, and we're going to identify what's the root cause. So often, always, I think, the problem isn't the problem. Whatever gets put up as the issues list is a symptom. So let's dig down and find out what's the root cause here, what's really going on. Once we've done that, we're going to discuss it. And then we're going to decide who is going to do what by when to solve that problem so it goes away. Because what, as I said, normally happens is this. We go round and round and round and round, have this awesome discussion, and nobody does anything about it. Everybody thinks that somebody else is going to do something. So we say, what are our top 3? So we've decided today that Andy S, right seat. That's our number 1 problem for today. So we're going to pick that one, and we're going to identify what's actually going on here. Let's dig down, what's the real issue here. So we'll discuss it until the discussion becomes redundant. So that can be that it just naturally kind of stops, this discussion ends, or people start repeating themselves. So, okay, let's move on to the next one, which is solve. What needs to be done? And we have a process of to-dos which need to be done in the next 7 to 14 days. And it's very clear what needs to be done by whom and by when, so that we solve that problem of Andy S being in the right seat forever. So we're done with that one. Let's go to number 2 and do exactly the same thing for our website rock being off track. On to number 3, and then, problems. It's about getting those issues solved and making sure that the business is slowly moving forwards and getting better, and those issues are getting solved for the good of the business. So again, utopia, getting 100% strong, never going to happen, getting to 80%. So this next one we're going to look at is processes. Now, this is not about having a 700-page manual that you give to the person on their first day and they never look at it. This is about making sure that our core processes are documented, written down, creating that consistency. So the phones are all answered in the same way. When you work on a project, it's your business way, not the individuals in it. So it's those core processes like people. How do you attract the right people to come and work for you? How do you interview? How do you, making sure the contracts all go out the same? And the managing of people is consistent. And if they are not the right people, that you have a process to move them on without ending up in court. What's your marketing process? What's your sales, operations? There'll be numerous ones of those, but again, high level. Customer service, accounting. So what are those core processes, and getting those documented in that 80-20? What are the major steps to get you most of the way there, but still leave, what's this? I don't know if it's in this, but it's about leaving room for that humanity to come in, so that people's individual skills can now shine through. So it's not a robotic thing, but it is, consistent processes. And coming back with that, short and sweet documented processes without being, as I said, a 700-page document that nobody ever looks at. So it's about simplifying. What are the, I love checklists and making sure that, people can follow them. But as I said, still bring that sort of level of personal and personable skill into it. So people, process, identify the need, define the seat. How do you hire? How do you onboard and train people? How do you lead, manage, and hold them accountable? And if a termination happens, what's the process behind that? Sales process, and so on. So you'll end up with that short book, if you like, of how your business runs. But not enough to scare people away on their first day, so they run for the hills. You never see them again. And it creates that your company way document of, this is the way that we do things. Systemize the predictable, so you can humanize the exceptional. That's the one I was trying to think of, which I've had a week off on Hamilton Island. My brain's a bit fuzzy. So that is about getting your processes documented at that high level. And the next thing is, and the critical part of this, is making sure that everybody in the organisation is following those same processes. So you have the, my business is Otto, so it's the Otto way, not the Jenny way or the Nick way or the John way or the Oscar way. It's the Otto way. Bringing that consistency into that the whole business. So you're followed by your checklist. Are people trained? How are you measuring that? Are they being led, managed, and held accountable? And are those documents or the actual processes being updated because the business grows and evolves, new software comes in, so it's a new process. Are they being updated? So if you bring somebody in, you know that those processes are documented and it's up to date. My ticks in there. So that is process, documented, followed by all. And again, Utopia, 100% strong. Probably my least favorite. I'm not particularly a detail person, so I struggle in this one, but it's about getting you to 80%. Yep. And Debra, back to you for traction. Let me stop sharing.
Thank you. I think I've already taken over. So, I think as Jeni said, we're neither of us are particularly fond of process. I think it's probably because we're more in the visionary kind of space than anything else. But I think the problem is we tend to overcomplicate it. And the real key to this is actually making sure you really simplify it down. Just having bullet points is enough for the core processes. And when we say core processes, just the top 20%. Don't get overexcited. Don't produce a 700-page manual. Okay, we're on to the home straight, and we're talking about traction, which of course is the book by Gino. And this is about how do we actually make sure that all of that wonderful stuff is people are being held accountable. We've got the discipline. We're actually doing what we say we're doing. So the first thing that we have, and we've talked about this before in the VTO, is actually having rocks. So rocks are your 90-day chunks of work that need to be done, that need to take priority over anything else. And anybody who's seen the Stephen Covey video, I think it was done in the 70s. It's very, very old-fashioned, but it's beautiful. It basically shows that, if you've got rocks, and rocks being the most important things, pebbles being the other day-to-day stuff, the sand being the stuff that kind of gets in the way, and the water just being the the completely useless stuff. If you don't put them in that order into a container, it won't fit. So you've got to put the rocks in first and make room for them, and everything else can kind of fix around that. So we make sure that every single person in the organization has got at least one rock, maximum of 7 throughout the quarter that they're focused on. So first of all, company rocks, then department rocks, then individual rocks. And then this next thing is a bit of a game changer, I think. So the meeting pulse, we talk about our meeting pulse. So first of all, we've got this 90-day world where every 90 days, the leadership team is getting together. They're spending an entire day in a room together. And they're talking about what's working, what's not working, where they've come from, where they're going to, how they're going to get there, and they're solving all the key issues. And then outside of that, we've got this thing called the meeting pulse, which is where we have level 10 meetings every single week. Initially at the leadership team level, ultimately, you know, and my company's got 140 odd staff. You've got organizational level 10, department level 10, sub-department level 10s. Everybody is having them, and the information is flowing up and down between them. So you're probably sitting here thinking, oh gosh, not more meetings. We can't cope with more meetings. Trust me, I've been in council. We did an exercise in council. I worked out how much of my time was spent in meetings. I spent 90% of my time in meetings. No wonder we were working long hours. But anyway, this meeting is a little bit different. It changes things significantly. So we talk about having a level 10 meeting, which is on the same day at the same time. So you go, it's a Monday, midday. We stick to that. It's always that time. We start on time. We end on time, which we will do today as well. And always the same agenda. And this is really interesting because when we first set this, you'll often find people kind of go, okay, what's the day? We'll do Monday, 12 o'clock. And then somebody will say, oh, I can't make it for the next 3 weeks because I'm busy. It's like, that's okay. This meeting will go ahead. This meeting will make decisions and we'll just let you know what those decisions are. So if you can't make it, no problem at all. There are 2 reasons you're allowed to miss a level 10 meeting. One is death and the other one is a holiday, because we actually believe you should have holidays. So it's okay. If you can't make it, we're going to go ahead. We're going to push ahead. And surprisingly, they clear their diaries really quickly. So how does this level 10 meeting work? As I said, I think this is a game changer for most people, because what this does is it actually puts some structure around what you're doing, and it makes sure you don't get caught up in that discuss, nothing ever gets done, I should say, nothing ever happens. So we start the meeting on time, and in the first 5 minutes, we start with good news. We call it a segue. We go, share with me your professional and personal good news. And this gets people thinking about, first of all, really positive stuff, but also gets them thinking about working on the business rather than in the business. The next thing is we go, right, let's have a look at our scorecard with the 13 weeks worth of things. Are we on track or off track with those measurables? So we go through every single measurable and we go, are we on track? Are we off track? Now, if we're off track, if we're on track, yay, high five, that's great. If we're off track, we do not discuss it. We drop it down to the issues list. We're just going on track or off track. The rock review, we then go through the company and the individual rocks, and we go, right, Jenny, you had 5 rocks for this quarter. Are you on track or are you off track for each of those individual rocks? On track for all of them? Fantastic. I had 6 rocks. I was being really brave. Actually, 2 of them are off track. We're going to drop them down to the issues list. Then we start with customer and employee headlines. So is there anything we need to know at a headline level? So again, this is not getting into the detail, but hey, you should know Jenny is pregnant and going on maternity leave. Or whatever it might be, or one of our major customers has decided that they can't put up with Debra any longer and they're leaving. So, you know, it's just a very high level headline, and we share that. And then we decide, is it an issue or not? If somebody is leaving, we might have to look at replacing it. So we drop it down to the issues list. And this is all about reporting only. We do not go into any detail here. If we do, we're going to waste time talking about things without knowing what the really important issues are. The very last part of this first part of the meeting is our to-do list. And we actually go, we had 27 to-dos last week. How many of them we have got done? And the idea is we should get 90% of those done every single week. And if we're not doing 90%, why not? We've got an issue, drop it down to the issues list. So what you then end up with is this great big issues list that has been created from Debra waking up at 2 a.m. in the morning and putting it on the issues list, the stuff that we've talked about in the scorecard, the rock review, the customer employee headlines, stuff from the to-do list. And we spend the next 60 minutes doing exactly what Jenny taught us, IDSing. What is the first, second, and third most important thing? Always 3 things at a time. We start with number 1, and then we move to number 2, then we move to number 3 using the IDS, identify, discuss, and solve. And the key thing here is, because we've now seen all the issues, we can decide what's important and what's not. So we could have got held up in the scorecard while the the salesperson wanted to tell us all about why they haven't hit their numbers. And in actual fact, what we would have learned later on is that one of our major customers is leaving us because they don't enjoy Debra. And so therefore we've got a challenge to kind of replace that customer. So by putting them all together into one list, you can start to work through that. And we do this for 60 minutes. So literally at 59 minutes, we go, right, we're coming up to the end now. Let's finish this issue, get the to-dos, because every single issue has a to-do out of it. And then we literally conclude the meeting. And the 5 minutes of conclusion, this is again is in your workbook, is we actually, first of all, we repeat the to-dos. So do we know who's doing what? Jeni, you agreed to do this, this, and this. You're cool with that? Debra, you agreed this, this, and this. You okay with that? Ashley, you agreed to this, this, and this. Okay with that? Great. The next bit is, are there any cascading messages, cascading up or down? So do we need to let anybody know? Yep, Jeni's leaving us to go on maternity leave. We need to let the staff know. We're closing for Christmas. We've got some dates there. We're changing the way we do things, a new process, and we pass it on. And then at the very, very end, we rate our meeting. And we do this at every EOS meeting. We rate it on a scale of 1 to 10. And we say, as a team, how well did we actually perform in this meeting? So it's not if you liked it, or if you liked the outcomes, or if you felt you had a nice chat and really enjoyed it. It's like, did we actually get to the real issues? Did we get to the root cause of the issues? And are we actually working to solve them? And so you can start at 10, which is what's called a level 10 meeting, and you take a point off for every thing you don't do right. So if Debra was late, we're knocking a point off. Jeni was sitting on her phone the whole time, we're knocking a point off. If we actually kind of, didn't really deal with the proper issues, we take a point off. And if we score less than 8, we have to report back to the team about why we gave it a score of less than 8 and what can we do to improve, because we're all about personal responsibility. This isn't like the meeting was terrible because Jeni went off on a tangent. Well, why didn't you stop Jeni from going off on a tangent? The meeting was terrible because Debra took over. Why didn't you stop her from taking over? It's all about what do we need to do to make sure we get the most effective meeting. So that's a level 10 meeting. And I have to say, it's tough at first, and it's really hard to stick to this routine. But once you get into it, what you actually find, you either spend the entire meeting solving one really, really big issue, or you come out solving a whole number of issues. But either way, you have got specific actions, specific things that need to be done. We know who's doing it, and we can report on it the following week. So this is a moving agenda that really keeps you on track. And once you get this...
Sorry, Debra, one thing I'll add in there is what we found when we brought this into our business was that was our sacred time each week, where we had all of the leaders in the business and all of us could be there and make a decision. So instead of grabbing somebody in the corridor or trying to, organize a meeting or, to talk about something, you put it on the issues list, because we knew that at 1:30 on a Tuesday, the whole leadership team was there. We could discuss it. We could make a decision. It actually saved us time in, getting everybody together.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I've seen this. I had a large team the other day where somebody said, I'm going to be in 3 level 10 meetings. I said, that's okay, because the first one, the leadership team will probably go for 90 minutes. Sometimes it finishes early, great, but generally 90 minutes. The next levels down tend not to be quite so long. So they might be 60 minutes or 40 minutes, depending on what kind of level they're at. But the idea is, sure, you're going to spend your time in 3 meetings, but you're going to have no other meetings. Like, this actually replaces work in progress meetings. It replaces the daily stand-ups. It replaces the weekly what's been going on. Nothing really cannot wait a week in a business. Well, I shouldn't say nothing, almost nothing can not wait for a week. So it really does actually save time overall. And it's difficult at first, but I have teams who rave about it, who actually love meetings now. And they love the debates and the fact that they get to contribute, because even though you might be accountable for sales and marketing, that doesn't mean you can't help solve a finance problem. Just because you're responsible for finance doesn't mean you can't solve an ops problem. So it's like that power of those minds to help solve your problems is just fantastic.
They are what we call GSD meetings, get shit done.
Get shit done, absolutely. So that is traction. And once we've got 100% strong in traction, it means, everybody knows exactly what they're being held accountable for. They know what they're doing. They've got that weekly pulse. They've got the quarterly meetings. They know exactly what's going to happen. And ultimately, that is the EOS model. So there's obviously other tools that support it, but that is the basics of it. And if you actually work on strengthening those 6 key components, I mean, on average, I've seen companies literally achieve their 12-month goals in 8 to 9 months. I have seen companies who, are enjoying meetings, companies who start this mid-year and thought they had no chance of hitting their goals, and they start to strengthen these and they hit their goals at the end of the year. So it makes a difference in a very short period of time, because it's being spotlighted where the issues are and you're actually dealing with them. So gives you results without a doubt. So the foundational tools, just to give you a bit of a recap. So we've got the VTO. That's your 8 questions. It's your 2-pager. Like I said, I recommend printing it out, laminating it, having with you at all times, referring back to it. You've got your accountability chart. And this is very much about, having, first of all, that right structure. Structure first, people second. What do we need for the next 6 to 12 months to take this business forward? And then who do we need in those roles? We've got our rocks, which is your 90-day chunks of work that will lead you towards your 10-year target, 3-year picture, 1-year plan. You've got your meeting pulse, meeting every week to solve issues as they come up, and once a quarter to solve bigger issues and plan for the next 90 days. There is method in the madness behind 90 days. People can't cope with stuff beyond 90 days generally. You got your scorecard, first of all, at a leadership team level, then all the way down into the different levels where everybody has a measurable and knows what they are accountable for. And that is your foundational tools. With those 5 things, you can make a significant difference. And then there's all these amazing resources. So one of the things I love about EOS Worldwide, we really do have this thing about helping first. Everything we talk about is available pretty much free, or books, you can buy them, but you can also get them as things. You've got downloadable tools, you've got videos, you've got the Traction Library, Basecamp, you've got EOS Implementers like Jeni and I, who will actually help you to implement this stuff. So, final thoughts. Our plea to you would be choose and use a system. If it's not EOS, we won't get too upset. We might cry to sleep at night, but nevertheless, as long as you're choosing a system and using it, you're going to get the results from it. It's going to help you get what you want. At the end of the day, I always say life is too short. You should be loving what you're doing. You should be doing with people that you love. You should have time to pursue other passions and all the things we talk about in the EOS life. So use this to actually create a business that gives you what you want and gives all your team what they want too. Our hope is that everybody in the whole team actually gets to live the EOS life and gets what they want. Just a couple of little testimonials, I suppose, from people who have actually used the system. So this is a wealth management, wealth partners team down in Christchurch. They hit their 12-month goal in 9 months, and I've actually had their annual with them just recently, and they've just smashed it out of the park. And more importantly, the people are loving what they're doing. We've got all the shareholders on the same page for the first time in a long, long time. Really, really good. So, real simple results. That's what EOS is all about. We're open to questions. So you're more than welcome to ask any questions. And Jeni, I will share whatever we possibly can.
So Ashlyn's just asked, what are the 8 questions for vision? So the 8 questions are I just put a link to the VTO in the chat.
The core
so it's the 8 questions are around, exactly. Yeah. So.
Yeah, perfect. So yeah, I mean, again, it's in the workbook as well, but it's really about in that VTO, it's the kind of the gray areas, the core values, the core focus, the 10-year target, the marketing strategy, the 3-year picture, 1-year plan, 90-day rocks and issues. They're the 8 questions. And I think it's really important. If you're in a larger organization, small organization, you'll probably just have one of those across the board. A larger organization, the vision will always remain the same, but the traction page will change depending on what department you're in and what you're trying to achieve. So you can actually, this scales to whatever size business you actually have.
Yeah, so for my husband is also an EOS implementer. He and I have our VTO for the 2 of us, for our very small business of the 2 of us, and our a couple of contractors supporting us do the stuff that we're not that good at, like admin and marketing and things, or things that we choose not to do. But that really does scale to any size business and same with the L10s. We have our weekly level 10 meeting for the 2 of us, and making sure that we're keeping on track and keeping each other honest. Having worked with my husband now for 25 years, that's something that's really hard to do, is keep yourself accountable, but keeping your life partner accountable. Yeah, that can be a bit of a challenge too.
I agree, and it's we actually do the same. So I've got myself and Jen and a VA, and we have a level 10 meeting as well. And you kind of think it's not a big team in the EOS part of the business, but nevertheless, it's amazing how focused it can keep you. And I think particularly when some of the teams that I work with, whilst they're big teams, they're still actually a family-owned business. You've got family members in there. It helps to bring real clarity around who's doing what role, and takes all the emotion out of it. So we're not suddenly going, oh well, you're not doing your job properly, it's because you're the spoiled one in the family. It's like, no, you're not doing your job properly because that's what's required of you, and so we have to do something about that.
Yeah. And same with our VTO, you know, we have that, with the accountability chart, we have our very simple accountability chart completed for Nick's and my roles in the business. You know, he's very visionary. I'm sure when Gina was writing Traction, he and wrote about the visionary, he was talking about Nick. And, you know, I'm the integrator. I'm not completely a detailed person, but I'm certainly more detailed than Nick. He has sales and marketing, I have operations, and then he has admin and finance. So even just the two of us, we're still able to use these tools. You know, so whether that, you know, it's a business of you know, Otto that has over 30 staff, you know, down to two of us, you know, we still use the same tools to, you know, depend whatever the size of the business.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, now, as I said, this is not selling, so we're not this. That's where we're going to leave it, unless you've got any other questions. Obviously, Jeni and I, you're more than welcome to reach out to us if you think of something after you leave and kind of go, oh, what was that again? We're more than happy to help. I hope that you have enjoyed this morning. I hope you've got some value out of it. Please just use the tools. They work.
Absolutely, they do work. We've been using them now in our businesses for about 4 or 5 years, and it's what we're actually exiting Otto at the moment. We have no day-to-day roles. I'd been stuck in the role of general manager for 10 years, and you know, it was EOS that actually allowed us to get out of the way of our staff and let them do their jobs. Yeah. And so yeah, happy to answer any questions, as Debra said. Thank you for your time, and yell out if you need anything.
Yeah, and we'll send a follow-up email just with some things. And if you wanted to get hold of the Traction book, just let us know and we'll send one out to you as well. So thank you, Helen. Thank you, Ashlyn. Thank you, everybody who joined. Really appreciate it. Have a wonderful morning.
Fantastic. Bye, everybody.